The views and opinions expressed on the Craig L. Hayes Show do not necessarily reflect those of Westgate Resort's ownership or management. And now, on with the show.
This is the Craig L. Hayes Show.
All right, we're back for episode number 4 with Rico Grippo here at the Westgate Resort in the International Showroom in Elvis Presley's dressing room. Boy, if these walls could talk about all the stuff and shenanigans that went on down here.
No doubt.
Over all these years, you know. And right next door to us through that double door over there is Barry Manilow's private dressing room, who has now got a lifetime residency here. I think that means he's going to be here for a while. So, anyways, we're in we're at Splash. We're like 88, 99, 90, somewhere in there. Splash. Feel the magic come alive, as you said. And you know the fun part about that is, you know, at the end of the show, they always said, come back and see us again because no two shows ever turn out the same. Boy, were they serious about that. You know, and people go, well, how can a show, it's basically the same song, same everything. Well, the difference was it ran 7 days a week, 2 shows a night, 7 days a week. So you always had, every week you had different specialty acts, you had different cast and crew and everything. So everything was off just a little, and when something went wrong, it went quite wrong, you know. And, yeah, let's mix pyro, electricity, water, lasers, dancers, all together in one big thing, put it on a stage, see what happens. Yeah. What did you like about Splash?
Boy, so much to say about Splash.
Well, say it.
Great times for me. I had actually started out when I was doing Siegfried and Roy. They needed somebody to learn pyrotechnics. So I was able to get my pyro license through that show, Siegfried and Roy. Company here in town became Advanced Entertainment. Matt Dillingham, it was through him that I got into pyro. He's the one that basically sponsored me. There was lessons to be learned. And I took that into Splash after Siegfried and Roy closed down at the Frontier. And I had such a good time. My time at Splash, well, the truth of the matter is I enjoyed everywhere I worked because there was never a dull moment. It wasn't a dull drum job. It was, let's see what's going to happen today. The cast, the crew, the theater, right? The roar of the crowd, the smell of the grease paint. It gets into you.
Oh, it does.
That's what you really realize that you're part of something unique. And every show that I worked, there was an introduction of some technology that I was not familiar with, which would include, in this case, the water. And some of the people that were working that show were people that I had looked up to during my apprenticeship years back in the the early 80s, like Lionel Cunningham, who was the gentleman who was dealing with the waterworks and wet. There was always something to do, always something that needed to be done. And the cast and the crew just made it enjoyable. Even the management, it was just, I can honestly say, there's, now dare I say, it was like a family environment where we were all connected in some thread of the universe who said, look at all these people coming together to put this show on. And how it actually, when it was all said and done, entertained hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people in its run.
Yeah. Family. Interesting concept. I think the Addams Family or Munsters were more normal than that family there on Splash. Though I love everybody that was on that show, and it was just Gail Brumbaugh, you know her.
Yeah.
She actually did an interview, great interview with her, and she was just hated doing it. I don't know why, but she did a great interview. She was so scared to talk into a microphone. It was funny. But she's always said, I could not wait to go back to work every night at Splash because something was going to happen. And she was right. I mean, it was very interesting. You know, it was one of your Vegas shows, dancing, and you know, the first show was always we'll call covered, and the second show for the girls was topless. You know, because you know you couldn't have a Vegas show in Vegas without having girls showing off their boobs, basically. I think that was in the rule book or something. I don't know, but every show had it. So,
There it was.
yeah. So, And I always thought, you know, being in the business, I was always like, look out in the audience to see all these guys out there, and I go, you guys had to pay to see them. We get paid to see them.
It's amazing how you can become numb to things. You wouldn't think that would happen.
And that's what I tell people. They go, well, how can you be in a show where the girls are, you know, almost naked all the time? And I said, almost? Oh, yeah, well, almost, yeah. And I go, you know, you get to a certain point, you don't even care. You don't even look at them, or you don't.
Just desensitized.
Yeah, it's like, you know, you're talking to somebody, and, you know, 5, 6, 8, 9 women walk by you almost naked, and you don't even look at them. You just keep talking to your buddy or whatever. You know, I guess you just get jaded to that point on that stuff. No, it was an interesting show. It was the #1 show for how many years? I mean, you know, Kutash, I mean, he put together a pretty good little show. I mean, it was I don't know what you call it, a mishmash of all kinds of different stuff going on, from motorcycles in a globe of death to topless dancers out on the stage to
Olympic divers.
all kinds of stuff. It was just a little bit of everything put together and packaged, and there it was, and people showed up. That room was almost full every night to see that show.
I don't think there was another show like it in town.
No, it was until they came up with, what's the one over at Bellagio? Oh. And that is a true water show. And until that one came in, then Splash was pretty much, you know, like the second, third string water type show. And then it turned into an ice show. Never understood that. I think you call it Splash, but there was no water in it other than frozen water. But while we were there, it was water.
Indeed.
And you filled in mainly on days off, or whatever you want to call it, night off, was going to be for Mike Criswell. Mike Criswell did the first podcast. He did the very first one that I did. Very first interview and everything. So that was pretty cool, you know.
We had a good time. I really enjoyed, because I worked under Mike. And because I had a pyro license, it was an easy shoo-in for me, because it was sometimes hard to find somebody who had the license. And I went to work for Mike, and we had a good time, you know. I had a few incidents, you know. Nothing's perfect in life. You can double load a concussion mortar or do something that I don't want to say bring the house down and cheers, but it certainly made him jump out of the seat.
Yeah. And that's a reference to me, okay, everybody, just so you understand.
Yeah, that was an inside one.
Yeah, that was you know, because there was a time in that show where a concussion mortar, which is just a big boom, is all it is. It's a powder you put in it. It lights. It goes boom, real loud. And it was for one special effect during the show, and my cue during that show was to stand behind it, listen to it go boom, and put my fingers in my ears so I didn't hear the big boom so loud, and it would go boom. Then I'd go grab it and I'd take it off the stairs and put it underneath the stairs so that the dancers wouldn't trip on it when they were coming down. Well, this time Rico had forgotten that he had already loaded it, and then he loaded it again. And I'm back there waiting for the big boom, and this one was a kaboom.
Goes off
I was
like
like,
a howitzer.
what the heck was that? And so I go around the corner to grab the fixture, the concussion mortar fixture, and it falls down all around me. It had lifted itself off the step, thrown itself into the air. The concussion come up out of it, and just like a vacuum or something, lifted that thing up in the air, couple, 3, 4 feet or whatever, and then landed all around me and just on the ground. I was like, what in the world? I mean, the audience probably, had a heart attack on that one. And I was, 5 feet from the thing when it went off. I was like, oh, man. One of those, Rico.
Had a few of those. I remember after the show, I saw people standing around the tank, and they're kind of looking at it. And I'm like, what are you guys doing? Oh, we're looking for cracks. What do you mean you're looking for cracks? Because it was a acrylic tank. Held a lot of water, thick acrylic tank.
4-inch thick, Lexan, yeah.
Well, I guess they were concerned with my double shot of powder in the mortar that they'd actually developed cracks in the acrylic tank, and they were searching just to make sure that there wasn't a crack in the tank. I'm like, oh boy, that wasn't good, was it?
No. No, that was not good. Wow. Yeah, it is, it wasn't just the fun on the stage, because I have to say, I enjoyed it. You were on stage doing stuff, but I was out mainly on sound, audio, cue calls, sound, and lasers. That's where I spent most of my time out front of house.
With Dudley.
It was Dale Dudley and Carey and Gibbs out there, George Gibbs.
Yeah.
Jr. Yeah, I just relieved all those guys basically, and spent most of my time out front watching the show from the front. And worked on stage just once in a blue moon after that. But a lot of fun stuff going on that stage. And what we were talking about earlier about guys being able to do a show, then go out and have lunch. Those guys, how could they put away a case of beer? Like 3 or 4 of them go out there and drink a case of beer and come back and do all the show just fine.
I think it was a personal challenge.
I remember Barbara would just sit there and she'd just look at it and tell everybody, for 5 hours, all I'm asking is you guys stay clean and sober for 5 hours a day. And I'd always chuckle because, between shows, where would I go? I'd go to Wendy's and have a milkshake and a hamburger or something, a Frosty. That was, my big deal. Everybody else would go out there and hit that, or the Slots of Fun. Remember the Slots of Fun across the street?
Oh, yeah.
The El Rancho next door, Slots of Fun. There was like a little circuit they would make on that stuff.
We had 50-cent draft beer.
Yeah, exactly. And
Quarter
you don't
pound
see
hot
that
dog,
anymore. Quarter pound hot dog, 50-cent beer. For $1.50, you could have, a hot dog and a beer.
Yeah.
How could you go wrong on that one? Well, eat that hamburger, hot dog that was worth 50 cents or whatever, and you'll find out. Yeah. But the stuff I enjoyed there was our time playing afterwards. You got to remember, the last show ended about midnight. And we were all crazy enough. We'd go, hey, why don't we go and play hoops once or twice a week? And so we started like a little basketball thing. We'd play, the guys over the Desert Inn. I remember those guys. We played some of them there because Kutash had a show going over there. So it was like, well, this Kutash show challenges your Kutash show. Come on over.
Now, you guys had some talent, though. I mean, I got to be pretty competitive basketball.
Oh, there's some serious ball players there. Yeah, I mean, I had some good times out there too because I'm not bragging, but I was pretty decent in my day, and I was with some guys that were really good, and so I was like, oh, I could run with these guys.
Right.
It was like, woohoo, here we go. No, there was some fun times.
I'd go just to watch.
Yeah. Well, you played a lot too, man. Don't sit there and...
Yeah, I'm a little guy, not like the big boys.
It was just fun getting some exercise afterwards, or going to the sport house and doing racquetball or something afterwards, and yeah, we had some good times. That show led to being able to do a lot of different things. A lot of good memories from that show.
It's the camaraderie. Back to what we were talking about before. There was a sense of family, and I'm not just talking about in the true sense of the word family, but you get to work with people, and you have like and kind hours, and you're working with people that have the ability to do things based on the time schedule that you have doing shows. So you just get involved in each other's lives, and it's one of the things that made being in the entertainment business back in those days so unique. It's things that are fond memories for me. And some of it might have been a little off the cuff maybe, but for the most part, we had a good time doing what we did. And
Oh, yeah.
we always made the show happen.
Yeah. And eventually after about, what was I there, 6 years? I was about there 6 years, a little more than 6 years. And that's when I came over here in '94. When did you leave? You didn't leave. You weren't there much longer after that.
No, I wound up going back to school and finishing my degree because back in the 80s, I was actually in school. I'd mentioned that I was playing in the marching band for UNLV, and they had provided a stipend if you wanted to play in the marching band. So you had to try out, and I had skills with playing the drum, like a snare drum. I hadn't broken off into playing a trap set and all of that. And I played in the marching band when I watched that smoke come out of MGM. Well, getting on the show, getting on the show at the MGM, the Jubilee show, kind of like put an end to my college career because I'm like, what do I need to go to school for? I'm making all this money.
Yeah.
I can graduate, but I'm not going to make more money than I'm making now. Why would I want to do that? Well, as life would have it, I decided I needed to go back to school. So I pursued a degree through UNLV, and the gentleman who kind of pulled me to the side, who was a longtime officer of the union, Dennis Kist. He was the president of the local. And he kind of pulled me off to the side and said, hey, I know you just got out of school. What are you going to do? So I haven't figured it out yet, I think I want to be a lawyer. He kind of laughed because he was a lawyer.
He's a lawyer, yeah.
And he went to law school, and the ability of doing what he did in the entertainment business, doing shows, afforded him the opportunity to go to law school and finish. And so he made me an offer, and I went to work for him for a while as an assistant under his tutelage. And that led to kind of a change in the direction of my life, because it put me into the beginning of an administrator for the union instead of being a referent from the union and a member of the union. And that had a big impact on my life.
Yeah. I remember you, weren't you taking classes while you were at Splash?
Yes.
Okay.
And
Okay, my memory's good on that one. I swear you were taking classes. You weren't taking a bunch, but I mean, you're taking a couple classes while you're, but that's the life we could live. I mean, you could work night times and still go do classes during the daytime.
have your days. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And if you were like most stagehands I knew, you had a day job and then you'd go do your shows at night. So
Right.
it's just because stagehands are basically whores. Basically, we're out to make every dollar we can. We sell our body and our life and our knowledge to make a dollar. So yeah, Splash was a great one, man. And I almost wasn't even going to work there because Barbara was really not wanting me there because the same last name. Difference was, my name came with birth. Hers came from a marriage and from an ex-husband.
But you talk about the small world, right? What a small world we live in. And I think the entertainment business in Vegas was definitely that way. Mm-hmm. You saw people in different places you'd go, didn't we work over here? And you realize what the connection was and how often you'd cross paths with people, because it was a relatively small community. And you talk about Barbara. So some others, we had a little shenanigans going on here and there, teasing dancers, doing different things, little pranks and jokes. well, I can't tell you why I decided to do this. But there was, back at that time in technology, we would use dry ice for atmosphere, for fog. You know, we'd run the dry ice through hot water and a fan, and that's how you'd lay fog down on the stage. And one of my jobs was to take that big block of dry ice and chip it up and get it ready for dunking it and making some fog. Well, for some reason, I decided to take a little piece of that dry ice and put it in a girl's costume under a little flap, and it happened to be on a bra, part of the costume. And I thought, well, she's going to feel that cold, and she's going to know that I got her. You know, I got a practical joke in. Well, I didn't know it was going to burn her. Well, that's what dry ice does when you're
Contact on the skin. Yeah.
too close to the skin, which I felt terrible about. So Barbara calls me into the office and closes the door, and she really wanted to fire me because it was just not acceptable.
No.
And I remember her chewing me out and saying, what am I supposed to put on your termination notice, that you burned somebody's boob? She goes, get out of here. You know what? How could you do such a thing, and be smarter and get out of my office?
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Yeah, that'd be a termination that the state would look at and go, what? He did? Okay. You know, I don't care. I get your unemployment notice. I'm going to go, I got to call this guy. Please explain your terminate. We're all looking at this going, what the deuce is this?
We did some funny stuff, I got to tell you.
There's always something going on between, you know, cast and crew, and more of the guys on stage, all you guys on stage. Us out front of house, we weren't any part of any of that stuff, you know. We'd hear about it, but, you know, not really a part of it. So, yeah, good shows, man. That's one awesome place to have worked. I worked in three main places. I worked in a whole bunch, like you, bounced all over the place, but I worked at three main places in my career of any time. 3 years at the Mint downtown. And, you know, I guess I could include Hollywood Jubilee, building that. You know, I never worked the show, never saw the show. Built it, could tell you how every piece went together. Never saw it. But that's okay. I was there to build it. Riviera, so Mint, Riviera, and then this place. You know, 30 years at this place.
That's an incredible run.
Yeah.
30 years.
Almost unheard of, you know, in that position. 30 years as head carpenter, yeah. And for anybody listening, head carpenter means you're in charge of the entire stage of everything. Everybody reports to you. Lights, sound, special, everybody.
You're the captain of the ship.
Yeah, you drive the ship, and I drove this ship for 30 years, and never hit any icebergs. Got close. You know, got some close ones, but pulled it off and still made it happen. Yeah, good times, man. So why don't we figure we're going to wrap it up right about here, Rico, but I'd love to have you back. We'd like to do more with you and talk more about the stuff, you know.
It's been great fun. You go down memory lane, and all of a sudden different memories pop up, and you realize what a life it was.
Yeah, I'd love to talk to you about stuff, you know, before, you know, because you came over here and started working again for me. You know, it was really funny. I got over here, and in not too much time after that, I started bringing people over here.
Yeah.
From the Riviera. Chris Cook, I think, was the first real one brought over here. And Criswell. And, you know, Kerry came over for a little while. And, yeah, started dragging people over here. Even brought over Slattery and Chuma.
Well, you know what you're going to get. These are people that you knew, you worked with. You knew what you were going to get. Some of it was, in fact, you made this comment to me once. I'm like, wow, what made you bring them over? He goes, I need comic relief.
They make me laugh. They amuse me. Yeah, I'll have to tell you some stories about, you know, having Slattery and that come over here and working with some of these shows we were doing, changing over all the time. And put them together. I'd put Slattery and Chuma with certain certain guys that were in charge of the other crews that came in, the road crews. I'd put them with them, because I knew these guys were kind of jerks, and so I'd stick some guys with them that would just drive them crazy, basically, and go, "Yeah, you want to play that game?" Oh, fun stuff, man. Yeah, 30 years in this place. I've already been gone almost 5 months. Haven't driven this ship for almost 5 months.
Well, I'm so glad that you're doing what you're doing, Craig, because we've barely scratched the surface. There's so much history, and it's what goes on behind the scenes that makes people wonder how the sausage is made.
Yeah.
Some of these stories are just incredible.
Yeah, we'll get into more of that. So we need to do a couple more episodes, but unfortunately, I've got more another person coming in here in about a half hour, and going to tell their stories. And they're like you. They're on the episode. They've already done 4, and we barely scratched the surface on them. People think they can't talk when they get on with me, but you start talking memories, and all of a sudden they start coming back, and it's like, wow, we could do this forever. It's like, yeah, I know.
It's a history lesson.
It's a history lesson, and that's what I'm doing this for. I want people to be able to listen to this, and even in the hall. I mean, if the hall would set up a website or something like that, for stories from the older members and stuff like that, or for the podcast and stuff like that, I'd be glad just to send them over the raw interviews, not even tagging them over to my stuff. I don't even care. That's to me. This is more a thing of trying to talk a little bit about my heritage, my grandfather and uncle, and what they did. So you'll see it in the book, and you'll see all about that. So anyways, we'll wrap up this episode that has come to you live, recorded from the Westgate Resort Las Vegas in the International Showroom in Elvis Presley's dressing room. And until the next episode, Rico, looking forward to our next interview because this has been so enjoyable.
Thank you, Craig.
I'd like to do it again. So until then, Talbot, take it away.
This is the Craig L. Hayes Show.